Monounsaturated fatty acids, say that 5 times fast. And if you do, you get a free set of steak knives. Everyone, this is Josh Rubin from East West Sailing and Performance, and today I want to talk about MUFAs, monounsaturated fatty acids, or more specifically, I guess, avocados. Now, back in the day when I was growing up, that was bad. You know, we had skim milk, leaner meats, we ate veggie burgers. I remember eating veggie burgers. Like, what the hell is that? Monounsaturated fatty acids, say that 5 times fast. And if you do, you get a free set of steak knives. That they were kind of not being discovered, but being brought to the forefront because people in Southern Europe were eating diets that were high in olive oil. Of course, they were eating meats and dairy, and they were getting some saturated fat. But they weren't eating much polyunsaturated fats in their diet. And they weren't getting heart disease, but they were eating tons of olive oil, which is more monounsaturated fatty acids. So even before I go any further, the question is, did they not get heart disease because their diet consisted of high amounts of MUFAs, or monounsaturated fatty acids? Or, because there's a huge difference, did they not get heart disease because their diet did not have a lot or high amounts of PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids? Me, based on what I know, my research and working with people, I fear it's because they had a lower amount of polyunsaturated fatty acids. But that's just my take on it. There's so much out there on monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. Now everyone, polyunsaturated bad. If you don't know it, you're not in with the cool kids, let me tell you. But let me get in saturated. There's so much out there. Everyone says saturated fat's bad, and then some say saturated fat is good. As you know, we say it depends on what source you're talking about. Are you talking about from a cow that's fed conventional grains? Of course it's bad. Of course it's going to cause high cholesterol. Of course it's going to cause disease. Or are we talking about saturated fat from a grass-fed animal? Or, you know, free-range chickens or coconut oil is very beneficial to the body. No, that's not going to cause any inflammation or disease, right? So there's a huge difference. We can't just generalize it. It's like when people say
sugar is horrible, it's gonna kill you.
Well, it depends. Are we talking about Pop-Tarts and the crazy different types of sugars that are in there? Or are we just talking about fruit or roots? It's very different. We have to really differentiate it so we know what we're really talking about. So here's a little school bus analogy that I learned from Bruce Fife. If we think about the school bus, right? And you think about fats. This is getting a little bit technical here. The bus is the carbon bond in the fats, and the kids are the hydrogen atoms, because that's what makes up fats, okay? We'll just simplify it. So if there's two children to a seat, that makes up the hydrogen atoms, and every seat on the bus is full, that's a saturated fat. If one seat is missing, one hydrogen bond, right, or hydrogen atom, sorry, that leaves that carbon kind of open, then it's a monounsaturated fat. If 2 or more seats are open, then we have a polyunsaturated fat. And the more seats that are open, the more polyunsaturated it is. The more unstable it is, the more it's going to oxidize. And that's the difference between like an avocado, which is more monounsaturated, has some polyunsaturated, to, we could go all the way to like some nuts and seeds, which is monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. And then we go to vegetable oils, you know, like canola oil and things like that, soybean oil that are highly polyunsaturated and highly dangerous, and highly, you know, oxidize in the body and cause a lot of damage, inhibit the thyroid, inhibit the immune system, cause gastric inflammation, and create cancer. Omega-9 fatty acids are monounsaturated fats, usually liquid at room temperature and solid when chilled. That's what kind of differentiates them from a saturated fat. Because saturated fats usually, when they're cold, they're going to become solid, and when they're more heated, they're going to become liquid, which differentiates them from, and this is all about the environment. Look what coconuts actually grow. It protects them. Their fat protects them from the heat so they don't oxidize. Then we get polyunsaturated in the presence of cold. They're actually liquid, but in the presence of heat, they actually oxidize and become more solid, right? We can look at, let's say, a fish, fatty fish. It needs to be flexible and it swims in the cold water, right? Nuts and seeds need to germinate in the spring when it's cold. Plants need to stay upright in the spring, etc. So these things keep them more solid so they can withstand the environment. Now, monounsaturated are not as bad as polyunsaturated. I know they're both unsaturated, but once again, there's a huge difference. Going back to the school analogy, one seat, those hydrogen atoms are missing, so it's only one seat missing. Not that unstable. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 seats, polyunsaturated, very unstable, very dangerous for the body because we are oxygen and heat. In the presence of oxygen and heat, polyunsaturated fats actually oxidize and create more free radicals. From there, many things can happen. When we're talking about MUFAs, today we're talking more about avocados, which are mostly monounsaturated according to the research through the Avocado Institute. 71% monounsaturated, 15% saturated, and only 14% polyunsaturated. So not that bad. And that's what we're going to kind of get to. Some of the pros are saying that, in a general sense, monounsaturated fatty acids lower your risk of heart disease, decrease your risk of breast cancer, lower your risk of stroke, increase your chance of weight loss, decrease your chance of pain and muscle stiffness, especially with rheumatoid arthritis. They reduce belly fat, which is a correlation with obesity and excess cortisol and insulin resistance, and is great for cholesterol, blood pressure, and insulin sensitivity. And of course, our examples are avocados, some nuts and seed oils, because they are higher in monounsaturated. They're still high in unsaturated fats, but it's monounsaturated. Of course, some red meats and whole milk have some monounsaturated, but they're mostly saturated. Now, the cons are kind of, we have to get specific. They're kind of on the cusp. They're not, some people just generalize and say unsaturated fats are horrible, like Ray Peat. He never differentiates. He says polyunsaturated all the time, but I've never really seen him say monounsaturated. Yes, he says avocados are bad, but for me, when it comes to Ray Peat, who's influenced us, it's either good or bad. There's nothing in between, right? Some of the cons about monounsaturated fats, or avocados, we should say, and I'll quote Ray Peat. Now, I'm not saying I agree with either. I'm going to give you my opinion in the end. Animal proteins and fruits, because they contain the lowest level of toxins, should form the basis of the diet, which I agree with. Not all fruits, of course, are perfectly safe. Avocados, which is a fruit, for example, contain so much unsaturated fat that they can be carcinogenic and hepatotoxic, toxic to the liver. I question that because he says, Ray Peat, it contains so much unsaturated fat. The problem is, he's grouping monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. Yes, I agree that monounsaturated fat can oxidize, but it depends. Are you eating 10 avocados a day? It can be a problem. Are you having 1 or 2, maybe 3 over a week or 2 weeks? It's not a problem. Does your diet contain high amounts of good saturated fat, a lot of fruits, and are you in a metabolic state? It shouldn't be a problem. It's more the unsaturated vegetable oils that I have a problem with. Now, it does make sense because when you do cut an avocado, what happens? When it's exposed to the air, which is oxygen, it oxidizes, it becomes brown. So a lot of people say, well, that's oxidation, that's unsaturated fat. What's the difference between us eating that and putting it into our body, which is heat and oxygen? Now it can actually become oxidized, create free radicals, and affect a lot of different systems in the body, from the liver to our metabolism to our immune system and thyroid. And at the same time, when we eat unsaturated fats, no matter actually what kind of unsaturated fat is, a lot of the times the unsaturated fats get into our tissues because our body is more apt to use saturated fats for different things like hormone production, inflammation, and some for energy, because they can get into the cells, than polyunsaturated fats, and they end up in our tissues. Now, ultraviolet's primary target in the tissues is unsaturated fats. And they create more oxidation. This is why people actually in the summer get burnt or get liver spots. the brownness. It's because the sun's interacting with the unsaturated fats in their tissues. We did a video on this, and I'll put that down in the description. The suntan lotion that you're using has a lot of vegetable oils or nuts and seed oils, which are high or higher in unsaturated fats, which when you put them on your skin and interact with sun, which is heat, create oxidation, which creates burning, which creates the liver spots. Mary Eaton and Sally Fallon reported that a recent study found that excess consumption of omega-6 fatty acids, and the key word with all of this is excess. All of this is excess. All of this is excess. The kind found in most vegetable oils increases the amount of oxidized cholesterol in the arterial plaque. They go on to say that the unsaturated fat omega-6, not saturated fat, that form the arterial plaque. So what they're saying is that it's the unsaturated fats that cause the cholesterol in the body to go up, to cause heart disease, to cause the plaque, etc., 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 etc. Bruce Fife says the majority of vegetables today are highly processed and refined. In this process, the oil is separated from its food source with petroleum solvents and then boiled to evaporate the solvents. The oil is refined, bleached, and deodorized, which involves heating to temps about 400 degrees. And chemical preservatives are added to retard oxidation. We believe that people should be taking in way more saturated fat than unsaturated fat. We believe that it's okay to find the balance of taking in monounsaturated fats. Do we eat avocados? Yes. Do we eat 10 a day? No. Do we eat way more saturated fat than monounsaturated fat? Yes. Do we eat more saturated fat than unsaturated fat? Yes. And that's the goal. So what my point is, do I believe that we should live black and white with certain things or anything in life? No, it's about finding the balance of what works from you. If you have liver disease or liver problems, should you be eating avocados or the oils? No. But if you're a healthy individual like me, can you afford to use or maybe enjoy some avocados some during the week? Sure. Are they going to kill you? No. It's all about finding the balance, and that's the point of this video, and that's the point of our philosophy.